Hey everybody, and welcome back. So this is the beginning of the part 2 of the cargo plane I call the FraEmmastein. I started this back 4 or 5 years ago, got it about 95% done, and it just was a lead sled. It missed my target weight by a ton, and I know there's been people that's already made fun of me for basically rebuilding a lot of it. The plane was supposed to be 54 pounds empty. It's a cargo plane, and its maximum flying weight was going to be 77. So yes, it would be the LMA1 under the AMA waiver for for over 55-pound airplane. But I wanted it to be under 55 pounds so that I could do all of my, I should say 55 pounds or under, so that I could do all of my testing and make sure everything on the aircraft works. If you followed this a couple of years ago, you know what I'm talking about. If you're new to my channel, sit back and I'll explain what's going on. So let's pop over to here. So the way I'm going to do these updates is I'm going to number them because this is update 1 of what I'm calling the finishing of the aircraft. And on the left here, I'm going to highlight whichever I'm talking about in the update. Okay, and I've never quite done it like this, but I think it's going to work pretty cool. Before we get too far into this, I want to talk about one of my awesome supporters, RTL Fasteners. They have all the bolts, nuts, servo screws, everything you could ever use in the hobby. And believe it or not, this airplane is going to have a lot of them, and I'm going to explain where I'm using them and why I'm using them. Because I used to, back in the day, go to McMaster Car and buy like 100 of this or 100 of that, 100 of that. And it just didn't work because I wasn't necessarily ordering like all the 440 stuff or all the 632 stuff or all the 832. And with RTL, it's just so much easier for me to be able to get it all. So if you go to rtlfasteners.com, you buy more than $50 in product, you use the top secret code DA30, you'll get 30% off your order. It's a pretty cool deal. So if you're new to my channel, and let me pop this open a little bit more. So if you're new to my channel, I'm obsessed with giant scale electric RC airplanes, okay? And it's my heroin, meth, whatever you want to call something someone's addicted to. Giant scale model airplanes is it for me, okay? Excuse me. So let's get into this. So in this update, we're going to talk a little bit about the fuselage, a little bit about the wing, a little bit about the motors, a little bit of miscellaneous stuff, and just to kind of get you up to speed of where this project is, what it takes to get it restarted, okay? So starting with the fuselage, I used 0.2 ounce fiberglass cloth on the fuselage, and it was stupid. It was way too heavy. Keep in mind, I only wanted to cover the fuselage from basic little scratches or real light hanger rash. Raw foam, when you just paint it, you can just kind of scrape your fingernail across it and scar it. And I had a whole bunch. I had like 200 yards of 40-inch wide, 4.2 ounce glass cloth, and decided to use it, and it was a dumb move, just stupid. So the whole airplane was just way overweight. So I was praying, and it worked, that I could peel the fiberglass off the pink foam. Now, it peeled relatively easy once I got it started in large sheets. But anywhere I had scuffed or sanded or done anything on the fuselage that was rough, it was difficult getting the fiberglass cloth with the paint and everything back off. But I prevailed, except for the landing gear pods that house the landing gear. That was 6.6 ounce cloth, and I had sanded the crap out of that pink foam, and there was no getting that off without destroying the foam. So basically, I got the fuselage stripped. 3.6 pounds is what, believe it or not, ended up, my trash bag full of all of that covering was 3.6 pounds, which is insane how much that weighed, folks. Insane. So the fuselage is stripped, and I'm going to 3D print some really neat couplers. I've got some aluminum I just got ordered to make the fuselage, be able to be a 2-part fuselage. When I first took this upstairs out of my basement, I glued it together, the front and the half. And I shouldn't have done that, because now to bring it back down to my basement, I had to cut it back in half. and that was not easy to get it really square and straight. but I prevailed. So it's going to be slicker than snot the way that I do the coupling, okay? So the wing center section, I'm not going to mess with. I think this is a work of art. It is dirty from being in storage. Windex cleaned it up and it's all happy. The wing outboard sections I'm throwing away because they are lead turds and they are just a mess. But the new design is going to be so slick. I think you're all going to absolutely be in awe. And actually, I got to be honest, I don't want to sound conceited, but if the outboard wing design works like I think it's going to work, it is just going to be slick. I'm so excited. Keep in mind, this airplane has leading edge devices that droop the leading edge, has spoilers, has large flaps that go back and rotate down like the B-36. And as you can see here, it's a pusher puller because, I mean, it's a tractor pusher, 2 engines pulling, 2 engines pushing. But what's also cool is there's going to be 4 EDF fans on the wings, kind of like a B-36, that are going to be there. Each one produces something like 1.9 pounds of thrust. So overall, you know, I'm going to end up with close to 8 pounds of more thrust. So I guess that's cool. But now we're going to kind of talk, walk down memory lane, talk about miscellaneous things for a minute. So in this picture, you've got my 4-hacker A60-16Ls. It's going to power the plane. You've got the 21-inch they're 21 14 pitch 3-blade carbon fiber props, Bila, and they're actually pusher props, but on electric I don't need pusher because you can reverse the rotation, but they are pusher props. On the bottom is the 4 ESCs, and I'm going to talk more about those in a minute. And on the right, I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper too in a minute. That's the activation for the rear door. Now on the C-130, you basically have a ramp that drops down, then a door that goes up the fuselage. This has basically a garage door in the back that's going to run up the tracks and open up. It's really funky, it's kind of silly, but it's cool and it works great. So about the ESCs, they're in the nose of the airplane. And if you know how all this works, you need to keep your batteries as close to the ESCs as you can so that they're not hammering the capacitors and destroying your ESCs. The wire from the ESC to the motor can be long, and you need to test to see what's the longest you can go, because there's a timing when the motor starts. If you get too far out, the motor can chatter real bad. So with my testing, I was easily able to go out 72 inches. So my ESCs to my motors is no more than 72 inches of wire. And the fans on them are computer fans I 3D printed housings for, because these are in my fuselage. There's little air intake scoops on the fuselage and exhaust ones, but these fans are to make sure there's airflow over the ESCs. I've tested all of this back when I was doing the airplane, and these work fabulously. They are awesome. This rear activation device for the door, and those black things are actually the tracks that mount to the fuselage, is really slick, folks. And my friend Berger, who I'm going to talk about again in a minute, he helped me design the controller for this. So there's 2 primary limit switches for the part that moves the door open, and then I have over travel switches that open up the circuit. So even if this system for some reason went wonky and the door opened all the way or closed all the way, it can't go over travel and tear itself up or overheat the motor and start a fire. So I always put what I call over travel limit switches on my systems, so that if the primary limit switch doesn't work, the over travel will just turn off the power to the motor and I can't have a fire. So what I want to talk about in this picture is something that's kind of difficult. So when you build a project and you're working on it 2 or 3 times a week, you remember where all your bolts and nuts are, you remember where everything is. But when you put a project on pause for 2 years, you tend to forget where you were. And you should take pictures of everything in the state it was when you stop. You should take notes. And I didn't do either of these. I was an idiot. So it took me 2 or 3 days to get all my totes out and get all of my, just everything out and lay it all out. I mean, you got nose gear there. You've got the cowlings there. You've got the whole air system in the middle. Keep in mind the entire front of this airplane is going to open and close for me to get to the nose of the cargo bay through pneumatics. So I'm going to press a button and the nose will open up and I can reach in the front and make sure that I'm putting basically in the cargo bay, I'm going to have different devices I can pop into the cargo bay. So I can put a track system in there. I could put a conveyor belt system in there. So whatever I want to pop into the fuselage, I got to be able to get to the nose of the fuselage. So there's going to be three pneumatic systems on this airplane. One is to open and close the front door, or the front nose, almost like a C5. I think a C5 is the one that has the nose that goes up and down. I'm going to have air brakes on it because all my wheels have pneumatic brakes. And then they're going to be basically air shocks on the system so that when I do load the plane up to maximum weight and it wants to squat, I can turn a little dial in the nose of the airplane and it's going to raise or lower the landing gear. It's got a torsion system, but there's going to be air cylinders on that, so I can actually adjust the height that it sits when it's fully loaded. Okay. So where I'm at right now with the airplane is it's back in my shop. Fuselage was cut in half. Everything's stripped. I know where all my parts and pieces are now. My new wing design is done. And I want to mention a little bit about how I build how a plane like this, I get through this successfully. I've got a couple of friends. One's Eamon Kelly, one of the greatest drone pilots in the world. He's going to be flying his drone in and out the back of this and landing it while I'm flying it. That's one of the biggest reasons I really originally came up with this idea, was how could I fly a massive cargo plane and him fly. He's the aerial photographer that does a lot of my video where he follows my planes around and gets great air-to-air video. So Eamon's going to be landing his plane in the back of my cargo bay. But I also got to give a shout out to one of my absolute best buddies who's just an absolute mental rocket scientist, and his name's Berger de la Pena. And Berger is the one who builds my PCB boards for me, my controllers. He's the one that I kind of do a self-check if I'm going to do like an electronic bus and going to run power off it and all of that. I'm more the creative person in all of this that comes up with the ideas, and I can draw in CAD and 3D. But when it comes to all the electronics, excuse me, when it comes to all the electronics that I've got to do that's outside the box, Berger designs them for me and guides on how I should do it. And he's where I learned everything about lipos, where I learned just about everything when it comes to flying electric airplanes. If I never would have met him, I'd probably still be flying gas banger airplanes that, in my opinion, do not sound like real radial engines, because I get made fun of all the time. Why do you fly electric? They don't sound right. And I'm like, yeah, your 8,000 RPM weed whacker motor sounds like a Merlin in a P-51 there. So that's it, folks. So these updates are going to come pretty quick because I'm going to work on this plane every evening. I am still working on my air bike, my ultralight. I've got all of my instruments in now so I can finish my front dashboard, my panel on the ultralight. I can get my air bike, I can get that done. So there's going to be two projects that you're going to be seeing a lot of updates on. One is my ultralight, my air bike, and one is this FraEmmastein. And I'm guessing I'll have this plane done in November this year, which will be great. I can get it all checked out and tested. I doubt I'll get it test flown until probably March of next year. And then I'm going to take it to CEF 2023 and have an absolute fun with this plane. So yeah, that's it. One thing about the weight that I've had a couple of close friends say, you know, Dag, you're crazy not to just finish and fly the airplane. My intent of this airplane was to be at 54 pounds, and I think I've explained this quite a few different times. I want the empty weight to be 54 pounds so I can test flight and get it ringed out. But over 55 pounds to like 77 pounds, 2 ounces or something like that, or 3 ounces, is what's called LMA1 in the AMA. So if you fly over 55, you have to give a waiver for your airplane. Okay, and you get a cool little card, so when you go to fly-ins, you can say, yes, I have my AMA waiver. But then above that 77.2 or 77.3 ounces, whatever it is, you have what's called LMA2. And it's a completely different risk assessment that you have to have an inspector inspect your airplane. They got to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and then you fly it, and then you get your waiver. And these waivers are good for 3 years. But with the LMA1, I can do my self-inspection, and all I need is a contest director or a CD to witness me fly the plane, 3 takeoff and landings, and then we are good to go. So for me, it's the ease of the LMA1 is why I love to keep all my planes under that 77-pound limit. But staying at 54 pounds, I can do all my test flying, make sure the airplane's good. Then I'm going to add the cargo up to 77 pounds and then go for my AMA waiver. Now imagine how much cargo I'm carrying between that 54 and 77 pounds. Imagine me flying through the air and I'm dropping, I don't know, 200 G.I. Joes with parachutes, or I'm dropping anything I want to drop from the airplane. I mean, I want to drop a 20-pound cargo sled where I've actually got the pilot chute, then the drogue chutes that pull it out of the cargo bay, and then two 8-foot or 10-foot canopies that float it to the ground. And I think that's going to be the coolest thing in the world. And I want to be able to load this thing. One reason this has such a big horizontal stabilizer is because it's going to be a very nose-heavy airplane at times when I take off. Because I built this airplane so it's almost virtually impossible for it to be tail-heavy. So if you think about where your CG is, and you think where your cargo is, you know, even if the cargo slides to the back of the fuselage before it goes out the tail, that will be aft, but it won't be aft of my farthest CG limit to fly the airplane. But I have a big-ass long nose. So if I had only the cargo in the nose, then the airplane may be so nose-heavy I don't have enough elevator to fly it. So it does have huge elevators. It's got a huge horizontal stabilizer. Some people are going to go, well, that's too big. No, it's not for what I'm doing. But what's going to be neat is any time that I'm dropping something out the back, that CG is moving back. Okay? And the system I designed should prevent anything from ever staying in the nose as I'm dropping stuff out the back. Okay? So thanks for this. Thanks for watching my update, everybody. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do it. I'm trying to build my YouTube, trying to get this out to more people. And I always end these with saying, please take a kid flying RC. We've got to get youth in it. If you're one of these old bastards that sit around the field and run off the young kids saying they can't fly FPV, they can't fly drones, they can't fly their helicopters, you know, if just go destroy somebody else's day. Don't destroy model aviation for children, okay? We need them so bad in our hobby. So rock on. I'll see you next time, everybody. And thanks for watching the update. See ya.